The Russian Ministry of Defense's African Corps operates on a fully lawful basis in response to official requests from the legitimate governments of African countries and carries out the tasks assigned to the units of the African Corps by those legitimate governments. First and foremost, these tasks involve repelling terrorist attacks that are being planned, including by certain countries that cannot come to terms with the loss of their colonial influence in Africa. It is no secret that France is engaged in this, working directly with illegal armed groups, arming them, financing them, and instructing them primarily on how to create problems for those countries. It is somewhat worrying, not just a little, I simply misspoke. It is worrying to hear that those who organize and fund these operations by illegal armed groups from abroad are also involving Ukrainians, and not mercenaries but serving military personnel.
We welcome Russia's contribution and the efforts of the Africa Corps in assisting what is an Africa-led strategy. So we do not see Russia's role as a meddlesome busybody who has not been invited. They have been invited, and they are helping us to stabilize the situation. Russia's role is welcome. We see Russia as an important partner to help us to deal with the threat of terrorism.
The Russian Ministry of Defense's African Corps operates on a fully lawful basis in response to official requests from the legitimate governments of African countries and carries out the tasks assigned to the units of the African Corps by those legitimate governments. First and foremost, these tasks involve repelling terrorist attacks that are being planned, including by certain countries that cannot come to terms with the loss of their colonial influence in Africa. It is no secret that France is engaged in this, working directly with illegal armed groups, arming them, financing them, and instructing them primarily on how to create problems for those countries. In this case, the Sahara-Sahel region, which have decided once and for all, completely and irrevocably, to break with their former colonizers and are consistently pursuing this course. It is somewhat worrying, not just a little, I simply misspoke. It is worrying to hear that those who organize and fund these operations by illegal armed groups from abroad are also involving Ukrainians, and not mercenaries, but serving military personnel. We appreciate that a number of them did so out of solidarity with a country that had also helped them to combat racism. Some signed for financial reasons. There is nothing unusual about that either. And information regarding the terms of such contracts is publicly available on various websites. We explained some time ago that all of this falls under the remit of the Ministry of Defense. We have also received similar requests from a number of other countries. The Defense Ministry has a dedicated unit which reviews these matters, and I am confident it will also consider the additional requests received today from our Ghanaian friends. I always carry the UN Charter with me, all the time, and look, it's come in handy now. Japan is also a member of the UN, but initially it was designated as an enemy state in that very same charter. The charter was read out in full before its ratification by Japan's neighbors, and they also read Article 7, which states, "This charter confirms the legal validity of the actions taken by the respective governments in respect of any state which, during the Second World War, was an enemy of any of the states signatory to this charter." In my view, there is really nothing to discuss here. If our Japanese colleagues are attempting to reshape international law to suit themselves and the United States, with whom they have a close alliance, if they are attempting to evade historical responsibility for their actions and are now violating their own constitution, at least as has been announced, the 3 non-nuclear principles, and an army that is already attempting to carry out operations abroad, something that has until now been prohibited by the Constitution, this is, of course, a cause for great concern. But if they wish to divert attention from this frankly aggressive, militaristic course by making such attacks, pardon my blunt language, on the Russian Federation, accusing us of violating international law, then I would advise them to mind their own business instead. They have plenty of such issues at home. We immediately summoned the Japanese ambassador, Akira Muto. We didn't get a very clear response from the embassy. They hesitated, and then explained that he would be unable to come either on Friday, August 14th, or on Monday, August 17th. That is, today, because he was either not in Moscow or was feeling unwell. We never quite understood this. It is, of course, surprising, because the ambassador is renowned for his boundless energy.
We welcome Russia's contribution and the efforts of the Africa Corps in assisting what is an Africa-led strategy. So we do not see Russia's role as a meddlesome busybody who has not been invited. They have been invited, and they are helping us to stabilize the situation. We have currently drafted an agreement which we have shared with the Russian side, and we want to work with them with this new framework we are putting together, which has the collective support of ECOWAS states and AES states, so that with Russia we can neutralize the extremists. So Russia's role is welcome. We see Russia as an important partner to help us to deal with the threat of terrorism. I want to commend all members of the international community who have formed a coalition of people with good conscience to support this Ghana-led resolution. And we are eternally grateful to Russia for that support. But the adoption of the resolution is just the beginning. Now the hard work begins, and we have already called the Next Steps Conference. We have identified a list of cultural artifacts that we demand their immediate return, and I must commend the Dutch government, the German government, and the French government. At least so far, these three countries have responded positively that they are willing to return artifacts in their possession. There are a number of countries, including the UK, who are frowning against returning artifacts. They have even passed laws that prohibit the return of these looted artifacts. We take the view that that has to change, and they need to join all members of the international community with good conscience to do the right thing. It is not fair and just that they keep these objects, which are of enormous cultural, spiritual significance. These are emblems and symbols of our culture, of our traditions, of our chieftaincy institutions. Some of them were looted from the palaces of our chiefs. And that is so important to us. It is about our identity. It's about who we are. And from Egypt all the way to the kingdom of the Ashanti, the Malian Empire, the Songo Empire, all the way to the Benin Empire, these artifacts continue to be in the possession of wrongful hands. And we expect that these artifacts should be returned. International financial system is rigged against the global south. High risk, high interest, high capital, which is very expensive and continues to militate against the development of Africa. We cannot continue with this world order. And that's why we are demanding that the global financial architecture changes. If you look at the sovereign rating agencies, how they treat African economies, the kind of reports and how they make it risky to invest in Africa, that is what leads to the high interest rate. And you're seeing a lot of African countries spending sometimes 40%, 50% of all national revenue just on servicing debts, on interest payments. How can you develop? How can you catch up? UN reforms. We cannot continue to have a United Nations where Africa does not have a seat. The large continent of Africa with 54 UN member states cannot have a seat, even just one seat at the Security Council. Thousands of our soldiers risking their lives on a daily basis in various theaters of conflict, putting themselves in harm's way to ensure that there is global peace and security. And yet, we don't have a voice at the UN Security Council. We are not interested in the money of the West. We are saying support causes, and that is why we commend what the Archbishop of Canterbury has done, announcing £100 million to support causes of young Africans, young entrepreneurs, to go into businesses, invest in startups. That's the kind of arrangement we want to see. African leaders are not asking for money to line our pockets. That's not what we're asking for.
Upgrade your news experience with the all-new HT app. Download now